years old, Abby D'Agostino is the most decorated Ivy League athlete in track and field and cross-country running. She is the first Dartmouth female distance runner to win a NCAA title, and she has won 7 of them. The woman is fast, and she knows how to win races. Look straight ahead. No distractions, no matter what. Never look back. Focus on the finish and on winning. Looking back is a sign of weakness. Well, Abby knew these laws of competitive running as well as anyone else. But this past Tuesday, she broke them all. When New Zealand's Nikki Hamblin was tripped and fell, she was hurt and dazed for a few moments. And then Abby tripped over her. But Abby was able to get up. And what she should have done was to continue running as fast as she could and try to make up her time. Abby should have ignored Nikki, who inadvertently had caused her to trip, and to focus on winning the race. But instead, Abby stood up and walked over to Nikki, helped her up, saying, get up, we've got to finish. Get up, this is the Olympics, we've got to finish this. And together, the two continued in the race. At one point, Abby realized how hurt she was and waved Nikki ahead. And they came in second to last and last place. Well, I wonder what Abby's coaches were thinking when Abby stopped and helped up a competitor. I wonder if they were frustrated that she hadn't simply left Nikki in her dust. I wonder if they were offended that all of their coaching advice to look forward, not be distracted by anything, and never look back had seemingly been ignored. I think that maybe they would have a right to be upset. It was their job to make sure that the USA team did as well as they could and won all that they could win. And it seemed like their work was being blatantly disregarded. And so maybe we can't be too hard on the synagogue leader, and maybe we can have some sympathy for him as we read about him in Luke's gospel passage today. The image of Jesus healing someone on the Sabbath day is the third of 4 times that Luke writes about Jesus in a similar situation. Nowadays, I think keeping the Sabbath holy is probably one of the commandments that we all break the most. Whether it's soccer, or shopping, or working, whatever it is, I think often we forget that this commandment is in the same list of rules as thou shalt not kill. And we just don't hold it in this high regard. But it is the synagogue leader's job to remind the people to keep the law. This is a holy day, and it's to be revered. And if we start making excuses, pretty soon, no one's going to keep it, and it will just get trampled. If we read this commandment along with its explanation in Scripture that we are to do no work on the Sabbath day, whether we like it or not, the synagogue leader is right. And before we can start saying, oh, he's just too extreme or taking it too literally, I think we need to check ourselves for what rules we're sticklers for. Maybe it's just turning out all the lights if no one's in a room. Or that men shouldn't wear hats in church. Or tithing a full 10%. Or that the toilet paper goes over and not under. No texting while driving. And of course, that if you are running competitively, you look ahead and you don't let yourself get distracted and you don't look back. Throughout our lives, we have all seen laws change. Nowadays, we must wear seatbelts. Children need to be in car seats or booster seats until they are a certain height and weight. There are certain places where we can and certain places where we cannot set up fireworks. It is now legal for people of different races to be legally married. And it's now legal for people of the same sex to be legally married. And children are no longer allowed to attend public schools unless they have been vaccinated. And soon, it's possible in California that it may be legal to use marijuana. We have also watched social standards change over the years. Some of you remember a time when a couple would never dream of living together before they were legally married. And everyone in town would be filling church pews on Sunday morning. And people of color were one time not welcome to use the same bathrooms or the same swimming pool as people who are white. Sometimes it takes some time to adjust to these changes and to wrap our minds around them. And some we may embrace with open arms, giving thanks and tears of joy and wishing that things had always been this way. And others, we may just shake our heads. And so we can't be making the synagogue leader out to be a bad guy in this story, because he's just like us. He sees a law that is being deliberately broken, and he speaks up. But I think it's important to note that when Jesus was healing this woman, when he was standing her up out of her pain, when he was freeing her to see faces and not just feet, when he restored her dignity and self-worth, he was not just thumbing his nose at this commandment. Jesus was not saying that it wasn't important to keep the Sabbath day holy. He was offering a different interpretation of the law. The law was given to us as a gift to help us to be healthy and whole and to be connected with God and with one another. The Jewish people already had exceptions to working on the Sabbath where they could feed their livestock and give them water. And of course, if a house caught on fire, they would put out the flames. So how much more appropriate to bring healing and freedom to this child of God, to this daughter of Abraham on the Lord's day? It seems that acting with love towards another may be the best way to keep this day holy. When Jesus sums up the law, he divides the commandments into two categories. Loving the Lord our God with all our heart and mind and strength and soul, and loving our neighbors as ourselves. So we don't keep the law for the sake of keeping the law. We keep the law for the sake of loving God by loving one another. Luke shows us over and over and over again throughout his gospel that if strictly adhering to the law prevents us from loving to the fullest, well, then we break the law in order to keep the law. We then keep the spirit of the law. Like Abby, who has shared sense that she knew that her time in Rio was not going to be about her race performance, but that God worked through her and prepared her so that on this past Tuesday, two strangers from different continents who had never met before could meet at the finish line and embrace. I think most of us know that the spirit of the Olympics is about the world coming together in unity, much more than it is about winning or losing. So we might say that, well, Abby and Nikki lost that race on Tuesday. In a sense, they won the Olympics. So as we struggle with figuring out what once seemed black and white and now is a murky gray, and wondering what is even right or wrong anymore, we remember that Jesus comes to us and stands us up out of the sin that we are stuck in, forgiving us for the most unforgivable things, bringing us healing, and through his death and resurrection, frees us to see that love is the most important law of all. Amen.